Rest in peace to one of my media heroes. I don't say heroes too often because my biggest heroes are my parents. And of course, you have Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and people who fought in this for civil rights. But as far as like media heroes, Ted Turner's at the top. He is up there with Walt Disney as far as like visionaries go. Walt Disney, Steve Jobs. It's funny because the only guy maybe closest to him today is probably Elon Musk. But Elon Musk does stuff like Doge where he hurts people. And it's like, dude, you're defeating the purpose of your brilliance. Like, but Ted Turner, from a media landscape, I always wanted to be like that dude. Like, even when I do my podcast or these videos, like, I have like a 1/10 of the little empire that Ted Turner had. And if you would have asked me back in the 80s, Kevin, give me your Mount Rushmore of people that you admire or would just like to emulate, it would have been Michael Jordan, Spike Lee, Public Enemy, and Ted Turner. And I don't think a lot of you know like all the things that he's done that you still see today. So Ted, the mouth of the South, fancied himself as a modern age Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind. He had the gift of gab. He was a very charismatic guy. He wasn't conservative, but then he switched to being a liberal. But he bought this little station in Atlanta, Channel 17, which would be WTBS. He bought that station. And then he had also bought the Atlanta Braves. Because back then, everybody wanted to be like George Steinbrenner from the Yankees, right? He bought the Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Hawks and put them both on WTBS. And then had this little station in Atlanta broadcast across the country. So this is why we know David Justice and Greg Maddux and Chipper Jones and Dale Murphy in Akron, Ohio, because he turned this little station in Atlanta into a superstation. And God bless him because we got to see Dominique Wilkins and Atlanta Hawks and Spud Webb and Doc Rivers. Like, so he did that. He created TNT. And when he created TNT, he had bought the MGM film library. And at first he was putting those films on TNT. And then when TNT started to grow, he took that film library and created Turner Classic Movies. He created the Weather Channel. He created the concept of Captain Planet. Now, I'm a little bit too old. I really wasn't into Captain Planet because I aged out by then. But a lot of kids, younger folks, millennials, they know about Captain Planet. Most importantly, he created CNN. We would not have the 24-hour news cycle because I think he said he came home late one night from a business meeting and there was no news on. And it was like, we got to change this. I want news. And he created CNN in Atlanta, Georgia, not New York, not Chicago, not California, but in Atlanta, which featured the great Bernard Shaw. Bernard Shaw was the face of CNN. He was the voice of CNN. James Earl Jones was like, this is CNN, but he was that guy. So I see people like Tony Dokoupil on CBS or Jake Tapper. It's like, Bernard Shaw, this African-American, straight, non-immigrant black man. Because I gotta say this these days. Everybody's either an immigrant or they're gay or they're mixed races. Like, no, he's just a straight brother who was the face of CNN. And the beautiful thing about Ted was he just let his people, he might have created these properties, but he trusted the people that he hired to run it. He had Turner this and Turner that, but he's not like Trump, where his ego was so big that you have to know this is me. And yeah, Ted had some of that, but he let his people do the job. It's fantastic. It's just, he bought WCW from Jim Crockett Productions. And, it's Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and then the NWO and the wars, the wrestling, Monday Night Wrestling Wars of WWF, which would become WWE. Like, he was in the wrestling game. This guy was fantastic. But the worst thing he ever did, he sold Turner to Time Warner AOL. So AOL Time Warner was going to be this big media conglomerate. Now, the thing about Ted Turner was always a visionary. Always a visionary, always looking for the next step, the next evolution. And he knew the next step of evolution was, even though he was a sole person doing all these media properties on his own, he knew that sooner or later there's going to be media conglomerates. So he sold his companies to AOL Time Warner, because at that point, AOL was a thing and Time Warner was a strong company. And I think he was kind of told that he also will still have a voice. What happened was AOL just tanked. And Ted Turner's, I think they said his net worth went from like 7.5 billion down to 2 billion. But the biggest thing, even with the loss of the money, the biggest thing was the loss of control. I think he felt like sitting on the board of Time Warner, he would have a same strong voice that he had when he was creating all these media properties on his own, and he didn't. They froze him out. The one guy that comes close to this is when L.A. Reid, I think he was talking to my man from Boys to Men, his podcast, Sean Stockman. And he was telling him that the biggest mistake he ever had was selling LaFace Records. Because when you go from a person where it's your own company and now you're working for somebody else, you don't have the same carte blanche to say, you know what? I want to start CNN. You know what? I want to start the Cartoon Network for kids. You know what? I want to do a superhero about the Earth. They call him Captain Planet. You can just get up and go and figure things out. But when you're part of a board, you can't pull that off. So after that, I think that's when he started his Montana Grills. He kind of got out of the media game. But the 24-hour news cycle, channels that show movies all the time, the ability to see weather wherever you are in the country, this is all Ted Turner. He got married to Jane Fonda. Like Jane Fonda, when she married him, she put her career on hold. She did. Man. It's so wild because I think he was married to Jane Fonda at the same time David Justice was married to Halle Berry. But Halle Berry's career was on the rise. So their relationship wasn't going to last. But Ted and Jane, like Jane took a backseat in her career because she loved Ted that much. It didn't work out, but I think she still says Ted is like one of the greatest love of her life. So shout out to Ted Turner, man. I don't know, man. Like he was such an inspiration because every time you turn around, he was creating something new. That's how you're supposed to use your money, to grow and to foster and be creative. But I get mad because the people who had like the biggest mouths, who was the most progressive, gotten taken out. Muhammad Ali got taken out. Jesse Jackson got taken out. They're still disparaging Michael Jackson. The people that was actually making us think, making us grow. Steve Jobs just up and died, pushing technology forward. The people who are actually pushing us forward to grow as a country all get silenced. Yet we get a Trump and all these Republican governors and state legislators who don't want to push our country forward. They want to push us backwards. Like I said, Ted was about the environment too. Man, it's just ridiculous. So shout out to Ted Turner. You know, I don't know if too many brothers are doing like this for Ted. I'm sure some of the cats that I like Professor Black Truth, or some of these other people will find something horrible to say about Ted, which is fine. Because I know Ted probably wasn't a saint. But from my media lens, I don't think I would be the person. I don't think I would still have this thought of creativity, even though I wish I had his drive. Man, if I had his drive, man, I don't know who I would be. But at the same time, the ability just to make videos and try to create, try to have a broader vision, that's partly because of Ted Turner. Rest in peace, Ted.